What's up, Think Big family? Good to see you guys back on another Tuesday. I'm excited because it's episode 86, and that feeling you get when you have been going to the gym regularly, or when you've been meditating, or you're doing whatever it is that you're trying to create as a consistent habit, and you get to watch a win streak build. Every time we come on here every Tuesday, I feel like we're watching our win streak just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's compounding. So I'm beyond excited to be here for the 86th episode. You're going to see that I'm hanging out with my brown brother from another mother, Sam Singh. We are missing our homie Alejandro Alvarez, who's currently traveling the world. I don't even know where in the planet Alejandro is right now. I just know he's got no Wi Fi, and apparently no cell phone. We just finally got a hold of him today, and his cell phone has been stolen. I don't know if he lost anything else. So, guys, be on the lookout for us finding Alejandro here soon. However, I'm excited for tonight's episode because we're going to be talking about how to be productive as an entrepreneur. All right, now I'm going to let Sam introduce the theme of tonight. But before we get started, I do want to remind you guys, if you're not new to the channel, if you're not new to the show, go ahead and remind your friends that we are starting this episode up, because one of the best parts about the Think Big podcast is that it's live, is that you can put your comments in to the chat section and we bring it up on the screen. We answer your questions in real time. Heck, sometimes we even bring people up onto the stage and into the show. So make sure, if you guys know somebody that should be watching this and they need help, especially if they need help with managing their time as an entrepreneur, if they haven't quite figured out how to master their calendar, this is an episode they do not want to miss, and this is an episode you will want to take notes on. Sam, can you introduce what we're going to be talking about here tonight?
Yeah. What's up, guys? I want to hit on this because you mentioned Alejandro, who's traveling. He didn't even tell us. We're his best friends, and he just one day he was like, "Yeah, by the way, I'm like in Greece or something," and then yeah, that's awesome. Just reminded me how boring my life is because I need to just be mysterious and just go to Japan and no one would know, and then you guys, I'm just like, yeah, guys, I'm coming live on Think Big from Japan. Just a cool subtle flex. So Alejandro, we miss you. We hope you get your cell phone back. And that goes to show, guys, when you go to other countries and you look like a tourist, you will get pickpocketed and you will get stolen from. Guaranteed. That being said,
Guaranteed.
I'm excited about today. So you mentioned something, right? You said this phrase, and you were like, for the friends who haven't mastered their calendar yet. Marlon, do you think you've mastered your calendar yet?
I don't think I've mastered my calendar. I think I've gotten a lot better with it. I think I've gotten drastically better, but I don't think I'm a master yet, because I think a master never believes they're a master personally.
Got you. So for me, it's interesting because I think I suck with my calendar, honestly. There's I need to be more intentional with it, and that's why today's topic came about, because I've actually been working on productivity for myself and how to stay on track to hit some really big goals that I want to hit over the next like 3 to 6 months. And I realized like I need to go back to the basics of just like, how do you spend every minute of every day, right? And so it's caused me to go down this rabbit hole of high level entrepreneurship and productivity training and all these kind of cool things. And the reason why we have to go into that type of stuff is because when you're in a new season, the new season will require new output, new input. It will require new levels of things from you. And so today's episode is really going to be really interesting, because what I'm going to do is we're going to bring up like Google Calendar, and I'm going to show like very basically, based on the season that you're in, what your calendar is inevitably going to look like and what it has to look like for you to get to the next season and keep growing, right? And this is coming from a place of me realizing that I need to start stepping into a different identity, which is going to require me to step into a different like day-to-day aspect of what I do with my time. So one critical thing, guys, and this is completely inspired by Hormozi, so this is not any one of Sam's revelations. This is something that I've completely gleaned from his teachings. Is there is a difference between a maker and a manager. And that is something that I've struggled to articulate so much. And a lot of people might think, well, is that like visionary integrator? Or is that like creative, someone who's creative versus someone who just like, runs the team? Like what, like CEO, COO? The reality is every role in every season that you're going to be in, you will have to right? Have some levels of both. But what's going to actually have to happen is most seasons are going to be dominated by one. And the critical thing, guys, is not just how do you hold yourself to it, it's how do you prepare your team members, your loved ones, your friends and family, your partners in your business to understand what season you're in, what role you're in, and how you need to be spending your time. Because if you don't preface it the right way, you will have lots of problems. Lots of problems. It's something that I never understood. So for a very basic introduction, I want to start talking about managers. Most people are going to be managers. Most people are going to spend most of their time doing manager stuff, which is we have tasks and to-do lists and activities that need to get done to move the ball forward. Very hardline inputs, right? Like leads need to be called, right? Leads need to be updated to the CRM. Deals need to be underwritten, right? Sales calls need to happen. Like very hardline, tangible, trackable inputs. That's what a manager is going to look like, right? And a maker, on the other hand, does all the intangible stuff that has very, very difficult sometimes, or it can be very difficult to track and manage what that's going to look like. And the reality is it's going to look like a lot of different things based on the season that they're in. So a maker has to create. And the problem with creation is creation can feel intangible. It can feel immeasurable. It can be difficult to discern what that's going to look like and what has like qualified, right? Because one creator versus another creator, they can create two different things. That you give them the same prompt and they can come up with two different things. Now, how do you know which one's like done or which one's the successful one or which one's this, that, or the other? So with makers, the tricky thing is for you to understand that when you're a maker, this is what my day-to-day is going to look like. But also the tricky thing with makers, guys, is getting the people around you to understand that I'm not in manager mode. I'm in maker mode. And Marlon, you want to know the issue with maker mode? That they don't. What happens if a maker doesn't properly communicate to everyone else around him that he's in maker mode? What does everyone else think he's doing?
Everyone thinks he's doing nothing. They just think he's sitting around, or she's sitting around.
She's sitting around, right? And exactly. So that's the huge thing with makers. And so here's the really, really, really big thing with makers is that makers' calendars may not be nearly as filled in as manager calendars, right? And so that's the big thing. So in the beginning, when people are W-2, can I screen share?
You can. You should be able to screen share. Yeah.
I want to bring up Google Calendar.
And while Sam's bringing that Google Calendar up, I recommend you guys pull out a notepad. And tonight's one of those take notes, handwritten notes while you're listening.
There you go. So you guys see, so you guys see like a blank calendar, right?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. So Marlon, most people who are in a 9-to-5, right? Let's do this. Let's go here. We're going to change this to 9 all the way to 5, right? And this is going to be, why is this not? Boom. This is how you know I'm not a 9-to-5 person, because I don't. Okay, 9-to-5, right? And assume that it's on a Monday too. When you're on a 9-to-5 schedule and you're in the beginning, right? Every single day, the best time of your day to get stuff done, to get work done in your business and entrepreneurship, you can't. Why? Because you're locked in at work. Now, Marlon, you and I feel very, I think we're both in alignment with this. With people who are in 9-to-5, should they abandon their 9-to-5 to get into entrepreneurship?
Absolutely not. Absolutely no. The answer is no. Do not quit your day job. No,
absolutely, right? And one of the reasons why is because there's a million reasons why, but one of the main ones is it gives you the safety net to go and be an entrepreneur, to go play entrepreneur, to go do all those separate things on the side, and then have the safety net to not have to worry about like not being able to pay your bills. Because in the beginning, entrepreneurship is so finicky. It's so finicky. It's so volatile. It fluctuates a lot. There's no consistency. There's no predictability especially in the beginning. So do not abandon your 9 to 5. But in the beginning, you have to understand that your 9 to 5 is going to take up the majority of your time in like during workable hours, right? And you're going to have to manage a lot of other stuff. So the reality is, if you're married, right, you're going to have right here, you will have things like time with family. Okay.
I thought you were going to say arguments.
Oh, that too. You will have, I mean, that falls under, right? It can be a good day, it can be a bad day. Time with family, right? 5 to 6, time with family, right? Whether that's dinner, whether that's whatever it is, getting home and like loving on the wife and the kids, this, that, and the other, right? That's the simple truth of it. But Marlon, when someone is in the very, very, very beginning, what do they have to do if they're a 9 to 5 and they want to start getting traction in entrepreneurship?
What you're gonna have to essentially do is work 5 to 9, and by that I just mean after hours. You got to figure out how to put work in after hours in order to start saddling up your next horse that you're going to jump onto, aka the business you're building.
Dude, there you go. So after hours, right? So I'm gonna actually go here, and the reality is this, Marlon, is this going to be a once a week thing? Can you get away with doing this every like just only on Wednesdays? Is that going to be enough input?
With given enough time, it would eventually be enough input. Like the thing that they're racing against is the clock. So if their goal is, hey, I want to build this business in the next 90 days, once a week won't cut it, simply because there's just not going to be enough inputs in that time at that rate of input. So really it's just a matter of consistency, and repetition is going to be necessary. So once a week will eventually get you there, given enough time, but you're talking about expanding the time horizon.
Absolutely. So I don't know, can you see this easily, or is it too zoomed
I can. It would be nice if you could probably zoom in a little bit for folks, because I just know how some people are.
Okay, tell you what, this is what I'm going to do. I got
that's a lot better.
Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and change this from a weekly, and then we're going to go to a 4-day view. Okay, is this better?
Way better.
Okay, so you guys are seeing, right? Every single day, Monday through Friday, you're going to have 9 to 5. It's just, you have to do what you got to do to pay the bills. Then you're going to have some level of, like, let's just be honest. If you have a family, you're going to be with them. If you're single on your own, you're going to want to have some little time after work just to like have some level of downtime, just to, be able to have a moment to breathe. The reality is, though, after, and I would say, it doesn't have to stop at 7 p.m. The reality is it can go till 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., however long you're willing to go. The reality is you have to pay down your ignorance debt. Now, I've gone back and forth with this, Marlon. On weekdays, after people have already worked a full day, do you think they should be in a build the business mode, or they should be in a let's learn and pay down our ignorance debt mode? What do you think is actually the most productive thing for them to do?
So depending on where they're coming from, if somebody is absolutely brand spanking new, they have to go into a pay down the ignorance debt. They have to go into a learning phase. And this is my opinion. I just believe your number one asset is yourself. And so if you don't invest in yourself, like the SME 500, if you're not taking the time to learn your next craft, to learn your next skill, you're putting yourself in a bad position. So, it's anyone could be a motivated idiot doing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. So I think, and this is the key, right? I should actually go by saying this. I've done a lot of I've talked to so many people who, are trying to get into they're trying to get some level of traction. They can't, it is what it is. And what ends up happening is they don't spend enough time in the beginning. They'll try to go and do, right? Because I think they come onto YouTube and everyone on earth tells them that they need to do the thing. And what ends up happening is cool. They'll just go and get a CRM. They'll go and pull a list. They'll go do this, that, and the other. And the problem ends up being, I'm a huge fan of action takers. And I know you are too. But I think the reality is if you just take action completely blindly without having any semblance of knowing what you're doing, you're going to fail, wonder why, and probably have lost some money doing it. So I'm generally an advocate of at least paying down some level of ignorance debt, some level of base education, right? You and I are action takers, but we didn't just go jump out of a plane. We spent 8 hours in a classroom learning how to jump out of a plane before we did it. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's why it went so seamlessly. So in the beginning, I think what has to happen is you have to pay down your ignorance debt with things that you don't know. And this can be through YouTube. This can be through mentorships. This can be through masterminding. This can be through just connecting. And literally, guys, a lot of people think that, 9 to 5, they have to go home and they have to be on a computer and just like locked away themselves. It's the loneliest thing possible. The reality is like, can you do YouTube? Yeah. Can you do a mentorship or masterminding or whatever it is? Absolutely. But you can also just like schedule calls with other people. And this is like the true essence of masterminding to a degree, is that you can schedule calls with other people who are in the same boat as you. And then this is actually one of the most gangster ways to do it. Monday through Friday, you each have like your own kind of homework, right? Marlon's going to go study and pay down ignorance debt on CRMs. Sam's going to go pay down ignorance on sales, right? Alejandro's going to go pay down ignorance on, how to wholesale 101, right? And then like Thursday and Friday, right? Or just maybe Friday, you know what you guys do? You guys all collectively come together in that last minute off hour and report into the collective. Now, Marlon, I think, calls this the campfire effect. I call this the hive mind. It's basically the exact same thing. So whatever ends up happening, in my opinion, on a Monday through Friday in the off hours, I also don't think people have the energy truly to build a lot. I think they lose potency if they try to build, because building, like to put on your ignorance set, you can put on videos, you can watch, you can just read, you can learn and absorb things at a rate that's comfortable for you. But to like creation takes energy, right? Like Marlon, you've done days where you've locked yourself in your room and like, I'm not going to leave this room until I create what I want to create. And I can guarantee it probably takes a lot of energy out of you to do it.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely takes a lot of energy, a lot of focus. Even yesterday was one of those days where I had to lock myself away. And some people tried to talk to me, and I was like, I can't afford to talk to you right now because I finally caught a wave and I need to ride this wave while it's here with me, or else I'm not going to get done what I need to get done.
Dude, love this. And I'm actually going to change this. It's actually funny because it's an interesting way that he says, pay for, this is like how you pay for your now is the 9 to 5, right? Is you're paying for your now here, right? And on these ones, what are you doing?
Paying for your future.
Paying for your future. Like that's what this is. Okay. So in the off hours, that's what you're doing. You're doing it usually by paying down your ignorance debt. So I'm going to go one step back. It's like, cool. What about your weekends? You have time on your weekends. Marlon, if you are a 9 to 5 person, you are doing some off hours on the end of the week. Do you have the luxury, honestly, of taking the weekends off?
In the early stages, no. Or yeah, I'll just say no in the early stages. Or what I would really, the way I would like to phrase it personally, Sam, is on the weekends you have an amazing opportunity to put in some bonus work, right? On the weekends you have an amazing opportunity to recapture time and to really pay down your ignorance debt faster. So it's like just being able to look at it that way.
So I like that, right? It's almost like getting extra credit, right? It's like getting ahead of the curve. It's like going to summer school when you don't need to go to summer school, right? So bonus work, extra credit, pay down the ignorance debt of all the extra things, right? You can do that. For me, I actually like viewing the weekends, especially in the beginning. It's that Monday through Friday, you pick a very specific task that week, a very specific thing you want to pay down your ignorance. What is it? Let's just say week 1 is CRMs. 5 days of that week, you're going to spend your time learning how to optimize and build a CRM. And then Saturday, by the time you come in on Saturday, you've got the blueprint, you've got the formula, you know how to do it. You've researched all the other ones because you've done it for 5 hours that week already. So what do you spend your entire day Saturday doing? You finally execute and build the CRM. For me, the weekends are days to execute. That's huge. Yep. Now, I will say this, guys. I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, work 7 days a week. I like working 7 days a week. It's kind of just like how I tick. I will say I've taken the last like 4 days off because I just needed to for just like personal reasons. But I actually like working 7 days a week. I will say this. If you're working 9 to 5 and you have a family and you have all these things, I think you need to take a day off. I think you need to at least take Sundays off. Just because if you don't, it becomes really, really, really hard to sustain it. And is there a truth to just suck it up and do the work and work and work and work? I think there is, but the inevitable truth of that is that you will burn out, right? In the beginning, I want to do everything possible for you guys not to burn out. Because here's the problem. Marlon, when you burn out, how long, because you inevitably will, I'm sure you do. How long do your burnouts, how long do they last?
For sure. It lasts a lot longer. I just had this conversation yesterday that if you don't make time for intentional breaks, the challenge is when you do break down, what could have been a short break that you intentionally put in place becomes a breakdown, and now you need to be fully repaired. So if my car, like in NASCAR, if I just pull into the pit stop, it takes 2 minutes for those guys to get me back on the track and I can finish the entire race. But if I let the engine blow, it's going to take them 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks to repair the engine. And now I'm out of the race.
There you go. So that's huge, guys. You guys have to understand that burning out is something, and as you get better and better and better and better and more experience, I think the length of your burnouts, because you learn how to manage them better, they will shorten, right? Like Mr. Beast, who's arguably the greatest YouTube content creator on earth, his burnouts, like when he burns out, it literally lasts 1 to 2 days now. But I'm sure 5 years ago, it was maybe like 3-4 days, right? And eventually you will learn how to combat them and shorten that range. But in the beginning, guys, if you haven't burnt out a lot, it's going to be a long time. It's going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to be really hard for you guys to manage it going forward. And that's huge.
Let me address something here with this, because I know occasionally someone's going to watch this either right now live or in the future, and they are in a very high energy, they're go all gas, no brakes. And they say, Sam, I don't burn out though. I'm like you, Sam. I can work 7 days a week. Right. I'm not like Marlon. I don't need breaks. I don't need a weekend. I don't need rest. I can go, 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 go. The thing that I'm concerned about with those individuals is I believe them. Yes, they can go 7 days a week. Yes, they are an infinite power machine. They don't break down. The people around them do. The people that they care about break. And that's what I mean, I've watched relationships get ruined. I've watched families get torn apart in my short 30 years of life. I've seen it happen because one individual didn't know how to stop and come back and pour into the people that matter to them. So it's not them that I'm concerned about breaking. It's the people around them that I'm concerned about breaking. I love that. Break for you and your loved ones. Freaking love it.
So, and I'm gonna speak truth into this, and it's not populating because it shows that it's next week. Guys, Marlon's right. He's right. How do I know this? Because that was me. I was generally always raised with it. Like Marlon, you know me so well. You know my whole thing is just like just freaking do the work, and that's it. Shut up, do the work. The work needs to get done. Just do it. The reality is, guys, I'm telling you right now from personal experience, it will ruin. Like, I don't think there's ever a truth to like no one ever burning out. I don't think that's possible. If you don't burn out, if you're like a high energy, high drive, I'm an energizer bunny human being and I can work my ass off, and you say you never burn out, the truth of that is you're probably actually not working hard enough. If you actually work, and work the hardest you can possibly work, you will burn out. It's inevitable because we're humans. Now, I get to a point where I will literally work just nonstop for 3 to 6 months straight. And then I will maybe have to take like a week off in those timeframes. Here's the reality though. The people around you, Marlon is so right. They can't keep up. And then here's the danger point, guys. They will decide that they won't want to keep up. That's a huge thing. Because Marlon, when you were working a 9 to 5, then putting in days in the off hours, then working all day Saturday, locked in the workshop, paying down the ignorance debt, building the thing, can you actually pour all your energy, life, and soul into those around you at the same time?
No, what ends up happening is you end up giving the best parts of yourself and the best energy to yourself to your work. That's just the reality. And I experienced that back in the early 2016, 2017, 2018, where I showed up for my job, I showed up for my clients, I showed up for the business and the investments and the learning that I was going through. But then when it came time to see my family, I absolutely took them for granted. I took some of my best friends for granted. And thank God they all had big hearts and they allowed me to go through that stupid phase. But I was pushing people away at an alarming pace.
So I want to hit on this. Jade says her toxic trait is feeling so guilty for taking any time off. Same. I generally feel as the leader of the business that because I have people who work with me and for me, and like we have multiple businesses. And one of my businesses, I think we have like over 15 employees. I should know exactly how many. I don't. But the reality with that, right, is that if I take a sick day, if I get sick and I break down, like I feel terrible. Or if I decide like, dude, if I feel myself losing potency in my work, I know I need to take a step back. It's hard for me to fully take the step back because I feel like crap that I'm not being potent for the team, right? And a day is lost because I hold the team to a high standard, so we have to hold ourselves to high standards. Now, here's the thing, Jade. You need to surround yourself with people that will remind you that you need to take a break for everyone else around you and that it is a non-negotiable. And I'm so blessed now that I have people in my business. And guys, this wasn't always this way. I had to work my ass off to communicate this and to also attract the right people, because I attracted the wrong people. But to attract the right people who actually understand that if I work and work and work and work, it will make me go catatonic, and then I will lose a week, and then the business will lose a week. And it's not even that like my employees will lose a week. You know who loses that week? It's not me. It's not my partners. It's not my employees. Not my loved ones. It's all the other people who do business with us. It's all of our clients. It's all of our strategic partners. It's all of our consumers, clients, customers, right? They all rely on us to be able to show up, right? And it creates this trickle down effect. So the reality, Jade, is for you to show up and show out for the business, you also need to show up and show out for yourself. And here's the key that I'm learning is that, guys, this people don't like this. I don't like this personally, but I realize it's a necessity for people like me. You need to plan your breaks. You need to plan your rest. Marlon, you are so data driven. I feel like you're not data driven with a ton of things, but you are data driven. I feel like with your sleep, with your health, especially with your sleep, with your health, right? How critical is it, do you think, people in the beginning to plan out rest or, rest and recovery?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer of it now, and the only reason I'm a big believer, like anyone, is because I went down the opposite route and I didn't do it, and I was experiencing burnouts pretty regularly. Like I was experiencing enough burnouts so that I started to recognize it as a pattern. And you don't really want to recognize burning out as a pattern. And I was beginning to accept it. I think the worst part was I was accepting it as a natural part of, well, yeah, this just happens. Like every couple of days, you're just going to be completely kaput and you're going to need two days to recover. That's just the natural cycle. And luckily, I had a high performance coach that she was the one that brought it to my attention. Like, you think it's no, why do you consider it normal to be burnt out and require 2 days to recover? Did you ever consider just not getting burnt out to begin with? I was like, well, that's not possible. You're supposed to get burnt out. She was like, are you? Where did you get that idea from? And so as a matter of practice, she made me go ahead and sit down and do a time audit and see how I was spending my time, see what was causing me to gain energy, lose energy, and basically say, hey, look, you've identified the things that give you energy. You've identified the things that drain your energy. Now predetermine how long you will do those things. Not saying never do an energy draining task. That's stupid. You're going to have to, at some point, do work that maybe you don't necessarily want to do as you're building, as you're in those early stages, because you just lack the resources of capital or manpower or knowledge. So I accept that. However, you don't have to make it your entire existence until it breaks you. You piecemeal it. You run the marathon with a marathon mindset, not a sprint mindset.
Huge. That's so good. And guys, I want to be clear about this. Jay, that's your issue. At the end of the day, guys, the season that you're in will require different things from you, right? The season that you're in will require different things from you. In the beginning, you can't give as much as you possibly could give because you're spending 40 hours a week at a job, right? And I don't want you guys doing work at your job, like for your entrepreneurial endeavors, because if you get caught, you'll probably get fired. And I don't want you to put your family in that. A lot of people are like, oh, if you got free time at your W-2, like go and like research and do the stuff. If you can do it and not get in trouble, sure. But if there's a concern of getting in trouble, don't do it. I have friends who like got fired from their jobs because while they were at their W-2s, they were spending their downtime with their W-2s researching how to start a business, how to do this, how to do that. And their employers find out and they're like, well, you're obviously trying to leave, so you're just fired anyways, right? And then what ends up happening is now you have to scramble because you lost your safety net, right? So Marlon, let's do this. We've built, a good rough idea of, what the calendar is going to look like for someone who's in a W-2, who's making that transition. Let's say they've made that transition, right? Let's say they've done this, they've done the thing, they've been a weekend warrior, they've, made 50, 60, 70K, done a handful of wholesale deals, JVing a bunch, doing all the things, right? Now they have a nest egg of, let's just say, $75,000. Now, to me, for 90% of Americans, that's more than enough, in my opinion, for them to take the leap. and go full time in entrepreneurship? What do you think?
I would say so. My rule of thumb is build yourself a 6 month runway that can sustain your lifestyle as is and as is condition for 6 months without any new income coming in. And once you have that, you have enough of a runway that you can buy the time necessary in order to build the next thing.
Absolutely. Completely agree. I'd say 6 months minimum. But yeah, if you're doing 60, 70, I think the average American household income is like 55 or so. It's like 50 to 55 right now.
Mhm.
So somewhere around there. So you should be fine. Marlon, let's do this. This is someone who's on the newer side, maybe done a couple deals, right? They're trying to build some things out, right? This is kind of like that intermediate kind of spot. I think every single day, Monday through Friday, right? You're still, and guys, notice how I'm not stopping at 5 p.m. Right? Actually, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you that 9 to 5 aspect again, but I'm going to change it just a little bit. So every weekday, Monday through Friday, this is that base work that you do at your W-2, right? For that job, whatever that job is, the base work that you do for your accounting firm or for your law office or for your dental, all the things, right? You need to determine what is the base work for your business right now. If you run a lending business, it's getting lending leads coming in, underwriting deals, right? Vetting securement and deploying capital. If it's wholesaling, what are examples of base work in a wholesale company, dude?
If I'm starting from absolute scratch and I'm a one-man team,
Let's just say you're in intermediate, right? Whether you've got some deals done, but yes, at the end
but
of the day,
basically, I'm in one of two positions on my team. If I'm wholesaling, I'm either in acquisitions, which means I'm talking to the sellers and putting properties under contract, or I'm in disposition and I'm selling contracts that have been brought inside our business. But effectively, we're transacting, like we are in a buy and sell mode. We are getting contracts and we're moving them, and that's what I'm doing all day, 9 to 5.
There you go. You're running a marketing and sales company, right? You're generating leads, vetting the leads, doing sales with the leads, following up with the leads. Once you've got the contract, you're selling the contract. This is the base work, right? I think that this is the one thing that I realized. People, they leave a W-2, they leave corporate America, and then they get into entrepreneurship, which is self-managed, self-paced, self-everything, right? And you know what the number one killer I see is, Marlon? That they don't treat their entrepreneurial endeavors this in the same structure that their W-2 is structured. And the reality is your W-2 is a beautiful example, especially if you work for like a big corporate company. Guys, they know how to structure daily activities. They know how to put people in seats to get tasks done. In my opinion, you should, a lot of times, people are like, well, I'm just going to talk to 4 sellers a day and that's it. But the reality is not many people, in my opinion, that I've talked to, I'm honest here. If I talk to 99 out of if I talk to 100 people who are newer intermediate wholesalers, I would say probably the majority of them are not actually doing critical, I think Marlon calls them like hands in the dirt type work every single day, 9 through 5. I think they do a handful of them. They burn out, mini burnout. They go and take some time off. They go and spend time with the kids, with the dogs. They get some food. They go on a 2-hour lunch break because they're enjoying the fact that they left their W-2 and they don't have to be back in 30 minutes. And I see that all the time. I see that so often. I think that 9 to 5, just like you do with your W-2, have the same mentality in terms of like 9 to 5. I am just going to put my hands in the dirt. I'm going to do the base work, whatever it is in my business. That's critical. And one reason why I like this in 9 to 5 is simply because other people are also working in entrepreneurship at this time. You can get on calls with people. You can get on meetings with people. Because if you're a wholesaler dealing with other wholesalers, guess what? They're all active at this time, no matter what. Like, it's a guarantee.
So I'm going to expand on this, and guys, I'm going to give me 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to expand on this, because ultimately what happens here, and I've studied this from why is it happening? Like, why is this the pattern that every person seems to go through, that they get into entrepreneurship? They're fortunate enough to be able to buy themselves a runway through their W-2, through their resources, through friends and family, mom and dad saying, live in the basement. We got you, build what you need to build. And they are given this time. And you find that with the time, they're not doing the critical work that actually builds traction and allows them to get to those next phases of being the business owner. What happens? Like, why won't they go there? Oftentimes, what you find is it's a matter of habit. When you had the W-2, it was you did the work because it became a habit. You had an environment that you showed up to. The boss said, do this, you did it, and you did it day in and day out, Monday through Friday for 40 hours a week. You built a habit around it. It became easy to do. Then you finally decided you wanted a different lifestyle, and you started to get into the building your mindset. You were building down paying down the ignorance debt, and you now formed a new habit of simply consuming. And the consumption phase is absolutely necessary. You need to consume. You need to educate yourself. You need to start feeding that other side of you. The like the Native Americans say, you have two wolves inside of you. Which one wins? The one that you feed, the one that you grow. So you start building this new mindset. You start getting on the right side of the quadrant, as Robert Kiyosaki would say, mentally. Now you've got this runway, you've been building the mindset for it, and you now have the ability to pull yourself away from the 9 to 5, and you've got to replace that 9 to 5 work. But so far, all you've learned how to do on the right side is consume information. So what ends up happening is there's a lack of clarity around what needs to be done with all this additional time. And you habitually begin to continue doing what you were doing before that started to even get you on this runway, which was consumption. We have to just clearly identify this is now the one task that needs to be done and create an environment for that. Just make the calls. And like Sam is saying, this is prime time where all the other people who are making the calls and doing the business and doing the actual hands in the dirt work are also doing it. Start to figure out, how do I break into that environment? Like, basically, how do I get a room inside of that sweatshop, not sweatshop, that's not the right word, boiler room. How do I get a spot in the boiler room with the other people who are working their guts out right now, so that I can now go into that phase and start to actually get some traction? And then I can still consume a little bit, but I have to now habit switch again for a third time, right? So I'm going from just working for someone else to consuming. Now I got to go back to working, but now I'm just working for myself. Later on, I will consume and I will teach people how to work for me. But you've got to go through your development.
So good, dude. And just as a note, the boiler room would be a great name for a private mastermind. I think that'd be a killer name. Like, I would actually add that. Remember how we said earlier, the pay down the ignorance debt, the time slots, it could be a mastermind. You should call it the boiler room. I love that. Freaking love that. But guys, 100%, 9 to 5, don't treat it any differently than when you were already at your 9 to 5. It's the base work. It's the hands in the dirt. Guess what? The other wholesalers, the other lenders, the other buyers and flippers, all these people, like the people that you want to do business with are actually doing the business at this exact time, right? So be hyperactive. And here's the thing, guys. I firmly believe, especially when you're in the phase of building, this is when you do maker work, okay? Or I would say this may not even be maker work. It may be maker. I'll even do this. I use this word a lot privately. I don't really say it a lot publicly. Maker ideation. And what I'll do is I'll break this down. I'll show it on the daily base. So base work, right? Ignore. Actually, we'll go to tomorrow. There you go. So maybe there's a little bit of a break. Maybe you do that to rest, reset, feed yourself, whatever, right? Maker ideation. And what do I mean by ideation? It's when you go and whether it's paying down ignorance debt, right? Whether it's the whole point of being a maker is understanding what things you have to create to get to the next level. So maker ideation for someone who's in like the intermediate kind of phase. By the way, guys, I'll just be clear here. Base work is manager hat. That's the manager hat. On the off hours, when you're done with the day-to-day money-making activities, kind of like the transactional work that you need to do to run the business, in the off hours, you then go and put your maker hat on, right? And you go into what I call ideation. So everything I do, guys, when I do a masterclass, I wish I could show you my whiteboard, but I can't. I'd have to like literally delete this YouTube channel if I did that. This whiteboard has nothing but masterclass ideation right behind my laptop. And the whole point of ideation is this. Is you come up and create things that never existed that you want the future of your life to look like, the future of your business to look like. So one thing that managers do really well in the intermediate space, but they don't ever understand this, and it's actually one of the most critical components, Marlon, to running an effective business and to building out a team, is company core values and identifying them, listing them out. having that be a framework that the rest of your business is built upon. The reality is, and why do people not study this, bro? Because when you're a solopreneur, you are the company. You don't need to write out your core values because you know them. They're internalized with you. The thing is, when you start building a team, when you start hiring people, when you start attracting people to your greater vision, you need to be able to share and communicate your core values, right? And that's a thing that people unanimously do not do until they start stepping into a role wanting to build a team. Every mastermind I've ever been in, bro, where we're trying to become CEOs, become business owners, one of the first things you across the board in every good mentorship that's worth its money will tell you or ask you, what are your core values? And if you don't have them, you can't go any further until you build them, because the rest of your business, like the core values, guys, are the DNA of your team. It's the DNA of your business and your culture. And guys, I'm sorry, core values drive culture, culture drives team, team drives business. That's it. And if you don't understand that process, everything is like built on a faulty foundation. Go for it.
Let me say this, because I just had this idea while you were talking, and it hit home with that, because here's like what was going on in my brain, Sam. When you put this on the map, and I'm looking at it from the standpoint of like a newer investor or an early intermediate business owner, entrepreneur, they're doing the hands in the dirt work 9 to 5. And then in those early stages, by the way, if you haven't gotten your first deal, if you haven't made your first bit of money yet, I would say, and this is my personal opinion, don't even worry about the maker work in the evening. Like, you work your freaking guts off on the one, like, you've been given a model and you follow that model until it produces, right? Like, you don't try to change the model. You make the model work. You get proof of concept. Now, I believe, Sam, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, you're talking to someone who's already made the model work, but now we're talking about make the model work even better, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So this is someone, and then now it's like we've shown this is going to be what's required of you to get to the next season, right?
Perfect.
So it's like the base work. Remember how in the previous version of this calendar, the 9 to 5 was the base work. It was the hands in the dirt that paid the bills.
Yep.
Now you have a business. That business, the base work is your hands in the dirt. Let me know. Can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it. It says base work. If you could zoom in a little bit more, that'd be awesome. But I can read it personally, and I'm not even on
Can you
full
see this
screen.
little pop up? Yeah, right there.
Yep.
So like hands in the dirt work, money making activities, call sellers, work deals, talk to title companies, all that stuff, right? In the 9 to 5, your hands in the dirt work is whatever the hell they tell you to do, whether it's making food, whether it's organizing merchandise, whatever the heck it is, right? But in your 9 to 5, when you have your wholesale company, when you have your flipping company, when you have whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You have your hands in the dirt work. Your 9 to 5 should be doing that. Now, you're going to do that Monday through Friday. And here's the thing, you can keep doing that for the rest of your life and make good money doing it and then not get to the next season, right? So what I want to do, Marlon, is showcase to them what is required in this season for them to get to the next season.
Perfect. And so with that, and I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page with that, because when I look at that maker ideation, what came to my mind is a way of defining that for people. Like, and if anyone's mind thinks like mine, I'm going to see that and say, okay, that's the time I'm working on the business. And like Sam beautifully said, this is your time when you learn how to communicate your core values. And really what this looks like, in my opinion, is you being able to sit down and not communicating 100,000 different things, but being able to come back and refine clearly what it is that your business does, what it stands for, who it's meant to serve, and you being able to take these big ideas and condense and compress it. It takes more skill to say a lot with less words. It takes intentionality to say more with less. That's what that maker's ideation is for when you're working on the business. It's you being able to communicate as the maker, as the owner, communicate success with less words.
Dude, huge, absolutely, right, guys. And it's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna zoom out here a little bit, and then let's go back to the weekly view, right? So, that's the weekly. Why am I not? There it is. Okay, cool. You have your base work Monday through Friday, right? You get some time off in the middle, some time off at the end, right? Whatever, do what you got to do to stay in the game. I think Marlon puts it better than anyone on the internet. where the goal of the game is literally just to stay in the game. Like that's really it. You want to win the game, you got to stay in the game. Like that's literally it. It's almost impossible to not win the game if you never stop playing it. That's, in my opinion, that's literally what this is all about. But in the weekends, right? The weekends are also where you get to go really, 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 really hard. In my opinion, I'm huge on weekend work, right? I have this saying, and people who like follow me really kind of believe in this saying as well. I'm a firm believer, and I know not everyone agrees with this. This is just Sam's perception of the world. I always say that millionaires are made on Saturdays, but billionaires are made on Sundays. I love those days, and here's why. On Saturdays, guess what? Even in the world of business, guys, you guys know how in your 9-to-5 space, there's people who only work 9 to 5 and then at 5 p.m. they're out, no more work. They stop working. They're just going to be social. And on the weekends, they don't try to create a better financial life for themselves. What do? They enjoy the weekends, right? They've already paid the bills. They've paid down, they've done their hands in the dirt work. And then what do? After 5 p.m., it's cocktail hour for them, right? On the weekends, it's we're going to go to the park. We're going to go to the pool. We're going to kick it. We're just going to watch the game. And we're just going to like turn our brain off. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But the reality with those people, guys, I'm sorry to say, is that the truth is, and if this is what they want to do, all good, right? But if you're trying to be an entrepreneur who's always like growing against the next level, you will have to start distancing yourself to make time for the people who are trying to do more. The people who take the weekends off, it's going to be harder for them to get to the next season. And when you get into entrepreneurship, same thing, guys. There are people who have a wholesale company, who have a lending company, who do flips, who do coaching, do whatever, and they only work 9 to 5 and they stop at 5 p.m., right? And they don't work on the weekends because the weekends are for the family. And that's okay if that's their choice. The reality is it will either A, prevent them entirely from getting to the next season, or B, it'll take them an aggressively longer time horizon because they just need to put in more reps. Unless they unlock some massive leverage point, but we're not going to get into that. The reality is this, guys. In my opinion, the people who work their butts off on the weekends, if you're a wholesaler and you're around a bunch of other intermediate wholesalers, right? If you're around 10 other wholesalers, the 1 or 2 guys who work the hardest on Saturday, work the hardest on Sunday to build the next level of the business, they're the ones who are going to get to the next level of the business. So in my opinion, to me, really, Saturday, Sunday is Maker Mania. This is where you go super hard. So I'm going to go on Saturday here. Maker Mania. And what do I mean by that? You go hard. You don't have title companies are closed on Saturdays and Sundays, right? For the most part. Let's just say Sundays. Title companies are closed. Okay. Agents don't answer. Heck, real estate agents don't even answer freaking Monday through Friday half the time anyways. So it's like, and a lot of your competition isn't working right now either. And the beauty of Sundays, Marlon, you know why I love Sundays, bro?
So it's quiet.
It's so quiet. No one wants my time. No one wants my time at all. Everyone wants to have Sunday off. Everyone doesn't want to like be on phone calls. They don't want to take meetings. And I love that because then I get to go and do what? I use right now, guys, or for the last, let's just say 6 months, I've used Saturdays and Sundays to pay down my ignorance debt to get my businesses to where they're at now. And so just like in the beginning, when you use weekends to get to the next level, you're going to use weekends to get to the next level again here. And then in Maker Mania, in the intermediate kind of stage of entrepreneurship, you really need to spend as much of that time as possible researching, cool, I know how to get to 6 figures a year. How do I get to 7? How do I get to 7 consistently? Because that's a different ball game. I promise you right now, a wholesale company, the way that they run, they have a structured company. I'll tell you guys right now, anyone who's doing $300,000 or less a year in wholesale, you take their operation and you compare it to someone who's doing 7 figures. Trust me, it is not just like a difference in marketing capability. It's not a difference in their budget. It's not like the same thing, but amplified. It's a totally different machine. There's totally different structures, systems, processes, people, culture, everything. You'd look at it and be surprised that it's the same business model or the same industry. It's totally different. And I believe the Sundays and Saturdays, are the days, the weekends are the day for you to really, really hone in on that and pay down more ignorance debt to understand what the best in the game are doing. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to add to kind of like this intermediate calendar?
Yeah, I would say I want to make sure like everyone understands this too. I want to say this. The step, like the most important step in the process is the step you're on. Where you're at, that it's like do the thing in the season where you're at as well. And I love when I listen to Sam because Sam will start to show me, okay, great. Like there is development all along the way. And being able to acknowledge and understand and anticipate what's required at each developmental stage. Because that's where I think is what's missing is people forget to anticipate what's going to be required and also to set expectation that Sam, is it safe to say that maker work is difficult?
Yes. Yeah, it can be depending on you and depending on where you're at. I think it's really difficult, but I'm wired a certain way. So maker work for me is extremely difficult.
Right. And I would agree. I think it's difficult because here's what I want to set the expectation around. You're not going to figure it out and solve and complete everything in a single sitting. Right? Like it's that Saturday, the 22nd, June 22nd. Sam's got a full day, a full 9 to 5 or a 9 to 9 of being able to sit down and work. And he may come out of that season of that day of work with a full-on SOP, or he may only have the first quarter of the SOP done. And it's going to require another iteration. And it's going to require another iteration. And so this is a never-ending process. It's a never-ending game. Always want to remind us of that. Like this is a never-ending game. So you got to be in love with the game.
Dude. So we said this earlier, guys. It's so important to know this. And again, I'm going to hit on this again. You can track and measure manager work very easily. It's inputs for outputs. The problem with maker work, guys, and I'm going to go, and I think it's going to click a lot more for you guys in this next cycle, because I'm going to show you guys like kind of like where I'm at right now, what I've realized I need to be doing and spending my time doing. I think Marlon and I are very in similar positions, and the guys that we look up to, they actually, I would say, live probably 90+% in the maker bucket, right?
Yep.
Marlon, you and I chat about this a lot privately. But guys, I did this just to make it clear. The base work, the hands in the dirt, it's red. It comes first. It's critical. Critical need. You do not sacrifice the base work. Why? Because the base work, to Marlon's point, takes care of you now. In the W-2, remember how we said don't quit your W-2, right? We said don't abandon your W-2. It's in red. It pays the bills now. It's this, like Marlon said, the most important kind of part, or the most important part is the part that you're in right now. Same thing with this. So the base work is always going to be in red because it's what pays the bills for everyone to keep their lights on. And then the maker stuff, the ideation, all that fun stuff can happen later. It really is a bolt on to get you to the next level. It's the extra credit. It's the off hour work. But let's do this. We're running up on time, but let's hit on this. Oh, dang. I just messed all that up, didn't I? It's okay. I cleared the entire calendar for a reason, so I know I could mess with it. Okay, so guys, here's the reality, right? This is where you get to a point where this is going to apply to people who are business owners, high-level CEOs doing strategy, influencers, and people who are even building communities, okay? So these are like people who are very much in a visionary seat. I love this. Okay. So, and guys, again, not me, totally rip this off from Mr. Alex Hormozi, because he was the first person who was able to put it into words that made it sense. I'm going to do this. And then we're going to talk about why this is so critically important for people to understand and for you to communicate this with the people in your business that you need to communicate with. Marlon, when you go into maker work, right? When you're trying to just like create stuff, I'm trying to do this. Hold on. Let me remove this. Okay. I have no idea how to change this, but we're just going to play pretend. Okay. Mm-hmm. I want you guys to play pretend with this. How do I hit? Oh, let's go all day. Boom. That's so annoying. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, I'll just do this. I'm going to block off the entire day. And this is the key for makers. Marlon, when you go and decide that you want to go and create something epic, something super special, for me, this would be like my signature master classes, right? Where we have to live in creativity. Marlon, is creativity something that you can just summon on a dime and just execute on?
No, it's actually something that even and I'm not going to go into all the details, but Huberman talked about this, that there's a build up time. Think of it like warming up your muscles. There is a certain amount of time needed just to even get into flow state, to get into deep work that people neglect. And then you have to be able to stay in it uninterrupted. And small things like a text message, like an email, like a phone call, like someone knocking on your door and asking for help, or someone walking by in the office space or your house, will pull you out of flow. And when they disappear, it's not like you snap right back into it. You now need to re-warm the muscles up, re-engage the mental muscle to get back into flow. So no, it's you got to create space for the opportunity to happen. You got to create space for the serendipity. You got to create space for the creativity to find you.
Huge, guys. And we're running up on time. This is something I wish that I could, like, honestly, I wish if we had a full hour, I could spend a full hour just showcasing what I'm going through and like how it's like translating to how we're basically repivoting my entire schedule and how I spend my time doing stuff. This was the key that I didn't understand. When you go from being a manager, and guys, make no bones about it, like the reality is in the beginning, you will be a manager the majority of the time. Now, to grow, you will have to start putting on a maker hat. Okay. Here's the reality. When you get to this point, when you're a CEO, a business owner, an influencer, a community leader, all these things, you are now going to have a team, business partners, people who are dependent on you to get the work done. And here's the key. Makers, I love Marlon said this, they need to be uninterrupted. Marlon and I are in a private mastermind, and there's been multiple times, not multiple, there's been at least one time where Marlon was like, hey guys, I'm basically, he didn't say it this way, but he was like, I'm basically in maker mode and I'm in a flow right now. And then we understand that. We're like, dude, ride that wave. Ride that wave, because if you lose it, you can't guarantee it'll come back, and you can't guarantee that it'll be as potent as it was. Guys, I've learned this because I'm a hardline human being. To me, I understand managers because I'm like, you just get the shit done. I've now had to understand that you literally, this is what being a maker at your highest capacity ends up looking like. You remove everything on your calendar. You tell your entire team, you communicate to your team, guys, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I am in maker mode. Do not text me, call me, message me on Slack. Do not schedule any meetings. Leave me alone, because I need to work on the new signature masterclass. I need to work on creating the next XYZ. I need to work and figure out the new ad campaign, the new marketing strategy, this, that, and the other, right? People who I understand really need this are people who work in the creatives, videographers, video editors, right? A lot of people, they hate, or they may not be happy with the results that their video editor sends them, right? But then you didn't let your video editor have the time they needed to really create something special and new and tap into their own creative genius, because you gave them a 2-hour timeline and told them you need to come out with this, 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 and this in that timeline. And the problem ends up being then what? They will give you templated work. But if you want to let creative genius shine, you need to give it the room to breathe. And this is something that I've had to learn to understand because I'm stepping into this role. Guys, I'm at a point now where I need to spend probably 4 or 5 days a week just being open for the next 3 to 6 months, honestly, just for maker work. For all the things Marlon knows what I'm working on. He knows what we're planning to launch. Huge stuff. It's going to basically change every business that I own. It's going to change every business that I get into in the future. It's going to put way more money on everyone's plate that works with me and works with me or for me. But it requires me to basically also take a step back and say, hey guys, I will be unavailable because I need to go create. And here's the key. You guys need to communicate this with your team, because if you don't, they're going to think you're just not doing anything. They're going to think that you're days off and just like playing video games or whatever. And like, here's the thing, guys. Like, the reality of being a maker, I'm realizing this, is you will clear your calendar, be you and a whiteboard, sit there and hit creative blocks for 4 hours straight. And then literally not be able to come up with anything. But what's going to end up happening is there will be a moment where you will be like, you will have a divine touch to you and it will unlock everything. And you have to be able to understand that you as a maker need to live and give yourself permission to do that. And that was a hard thing for me, Marlins, when I stepped into being a maker, is that I expected, because like as a manager, you kind of expect yourself to like just get stuff done. By the end of the day, you need to have a result. A lot of times for makers, there may not be a tangible result at the end, but the reality is at the end of the day, you may have realized what you don't like, realized a bunch of things that don't work, gone down a lot of rabbit holes that didn't pan out, which means what? You're actually closer to the one that will pan out, that will work. And the reality is for makers and managers to coincide and coexist and work together productively is there needs to be healthy, thorough communication between them. And the makers need to understand that managers want meetings. They want tasks. They want deliverables. Makers, they need the freedom to understand that like that's not going to happen unless I have like a free mind. And so the key for this, guys, is if you're in this seat of being a maker, it's okay for 2, 3, 4 days of your week to only be maker, right? To only be in your marketing creative genius. Have one day, I would recommend at least a day, where you give the rest of your team, the rest of your people, right? Remember how we said plan your rest, right? Plan your rest. Plan the time with the wife, plan the time with the kids, plan the vacation so you can, fill your own cup, right? And take the time off. Also plan the time to make time for the managers because they'll need something from you too. If you guys exist in a business, you will need things from each other. Plan that ahead of time, communicate it ahead of time. And guess what ends up happening? You're setting proper expectations. There's very low chance for there to be resentment after that because people are all on the same page on, oh, Marlon is working on creating the curriculum for, relentless results, right? And he's basically coming out with a new special thing and this, that, and the other. He needs to have the time off to create something special. And we trust that when he's done, it will be a massive payoff for everybody. And Marlon asked us to leave him alone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday or Friday, we can bug him all we want, and he's going to make himself available to us. And that's the critical thing, is that everyone needs to be on the same page completely with this. And here's what's cool, guys. I want to give you guys some insight. I know we're running over time here, so I'll make it quick. You guys look at the Hormozis, right? Alex Hormozi is an author. He's kind of a creative genius. He right now, Marlon, I believe, has 4 full maker days. Like the majority of his work for 4 days a week is uninterrupted maker time. And I think like one of those days is manager time. Versus Layla, who runs acquisition.com. She runs the day-to-day. She probably has the inverse, where it's 4 manager days, 1 maker day. And we could imagine that as Layla keeps growing and evolving and hiring more people, building culture, because she's amazing at it, I probably anticipate she'll spend more time doing the maker stuff and less time doing the manager stuff. And because here's the key, guys. A lot of people are like, well, makers, they just like, create, and that sounds so ethereal and intangible. The reality is makers can drive media. Makers drive marketing. And marketing and media equals growth for everybody. And so this is a critical thing. Will you start? Oh, great question from Karen. Will you start maker mode after doing research? It depends on where you're at. So if you're in a part of your business where you need to pay bills, you need to spend as much of your time as possible doing manager stuff, right? Once you paid all your bills, once you have a safety net, right? You have some predictability and consistency in your business. Then I think you then start, remember how in the beginning with the 9 to 5, that evening slot, we said pay down your ignorance debt. You would then start paying down your ignorance debt with maker stuff, right? But it really is just to take care of where you're at now. And then in the off hours, in the extra credit time, right? The bonus work that Marlon says, that's the time you pay down ignorance debt and perform on that stuff, on the maker work. And eventually you will get to a point where, like, guys, look at Pace Morby. Do you think Pace Morby, Marlon, I love him to death. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever met. It's insane what he does. I don't think he's not talking to sellers consistently. He's not doing any of that stuff. He's doing what is his highest and best use, which is creating media, right? Creating content, making YouTube videos, speaking on the dude's on stage like every 3 minutes of his life, right? Now, is that tangible, like measurable work? No, not really. It's really difficult to track what that does for everything. But the reality is everyone else around him understands that, hey, if Pace Morby keeps speaking on stages in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of new people who don't know him, who don't know us, right? We put him there, we will all inevitably make more money because we need him to be the highest and best media machine that he could be, and
So
for him to be the highest maker he could be.
and I want to say this, right? Like, essentially, I'm gonna use a lot less business terminology and put it like so simple. The maker time is effectively like your thinking time, right? Like, it's the highest use. It's using your brain power, and you have to be able to afford your thinking time. That's just the reality. Like, if you're starving, you don't have time to sit down and think. You need to go make money to go eat today, right? Like, you need to put food in your stomach. But effectively, there's two ways to afford more thinker time, which is either one, like Sam said, you had your hands in the dirt and you were just hustling and grinding and building up a runway, a nest egg for yourself, and being able to effectively buy your time to sit and think and create a system around you that gives you consistent time to sit and think. That's the way we suggest. Or the secondary way is you go in the complete opposite direction and you just simply allow yourself to require absolutely nothing, and you basically go into a state of poverty, and there you have all the time in the world to think. But I don't recommend that direction. I absolutely recommend the opposite direction, which is you build up capital, you build up resources, and you afford yourself the ability to sit down and to think and to be able to create and make the next opportunity.
That's huge. And so here's, guys, I want to hit on this. If you guys notice, I didn't mention this, but if you guys noticed on this calendar, right, which is where I'm at now in business and in life and all the things, notice how the red, the non-negotiable for me now has become the maker work, right? Marlon, I think you would agree that I'm relatively decent at business, but for me to evolve into the next season, I need to spend less time doing manager stuff and I need to spend more time doing maker stuff, right?
Mhm.
For us, there will be a time, guys, as long as you're growing, where it will flip. Your day-to-day hands in the dirt, the hands in the dirt for me now, guys, is literally working on content and master classes and marketing and strategic plans to grow the brand. All these things that don't directly pay us money. None of these things, because I don't charge, right? None of these things directly pay us money, but they indirectly grow everything that I do across the board. So
Mhm.
now I'm at a point where my red non-negotiable work, I have to accept it's me sitting in front of a whiteboard all day. And like, guys, I hate that. I don't like that. Sasha, who we all know and love, Sasha's amazing. She texted me the other day and then she was like, you literally need to get to a point where you have to pretty much delegate everything that doesn't give you a massive immediate ROI. Like, that's just it. Everything needs to be delegated because you need to spend all of your time on this whiteboard creating, making, right? And so this will happen to you eventually as long as you keep growing too, is the roles will flip. In the beginning couple seasons for me, my hands in the dirt was all the day-to-day money-making activities that I had to transact basically my time for a result. Now I have to pour into a different bucket, which is if I'm going to put my time in, I don't get paid one time. I get paid lifetime. It's like a one-to-many. It's an infinite game. It's really cool to see. This is something we can break down infinitely further on, but we're so past time. Marlon, dude, I think today was a good one, dude, because like it's tough for me to articulate all this because my brain isn't wired to understand this. So I don't know. How do you feel that we did today, man?
I think we did a good job, and I think this is just a meaty topic, and that's something that needs deep diving and unpacking because it's something I know personally. I've struggled with it every single time. In fact, I was just down in Puerto Rico with the Nortons, and I was talking to Jerry and Anne Marie about this exact thing. I said, Jerry, I have felt, I don't know, just out of curiosity, like, have you gone through this? I have felt so guilty when I've gotten to stages of being able to sit down and I know my responsibility is to think, come up with an idea, and be able to communicate it clearly to the people I'm working with. But when I'm doing that, Jerry, I'm not making calls. I'm not running around. I'm not in the middle of a transaction. I'm not doing the thing. It feels like I'm not doing work because it's not the work that I can track and measure with a KPI. And he said, yeah, bro, but that's the process. And that's a part of it. And he told me some of his stories, which we can get into on another day. This is a big, big, meaty conversation. And I saw somebody earlier even say, I think it was Jade. She said, I feel so guilty. I feel guilty when I'm not working. And that's a part of the entrepreneurial journey. Next week, we might have to talk about this some more or on a future episode. I don't know what next week's episode is going to be yet. However, I do know this. I'm first off grateful that everyone came back this week to watch another episode live with us. Shout out to Peter, shout out to Jade, Karen, Carlos, John. We love seeing you guys. David Smith in the house. Freaking love you, man. You're crushing it in your business right now. His welding business is booming. We appreciate you guys for being here. I wanted to say, if you got value, do the thing that I normally ask you to do, which is to first off hit that little thumbs up button right there on your screen right now, because I just said it, hit it right now. The next thing I need you to do, because you've already taken care of task number one, is to share this video with a friend, preferably somebody who is on their entrepreneurial journey and they've been struggling with that same level of guilt of, I need to work on the business, but I don't know how to communicate that to my team. I don't know how to communicate that to my friends and family, that I'm not just sitting here doing nothing. I'm actually creating the future. I'm actually building for tomorrow. How do I explain that to them? This video is to aid you with that, and we'll take the blame. You could say Marlon and Sam told me that I can have an entire day on my calendar that's just for me to work. So share this video with that person who needs to communicate that message to their friends, to their employees, to their partners, to their family. And finally, I need you guys to continue to go out there and build. Right now, we need more people to create. We need more people to lead. I want to remind you that we're 5% of the population. Like 5% of the population is providing an amazing resource and opportunities for the other 95%. So the world needs more people who are building business. The world needs more people who are following through and staying consistent with this journey. Keep going. This is a lot of you have been waiting for a sign. Today is that sign. Keep going. So we'll see you back here next week for episode 87 of the Think Big podcast, 5 p.m. PST.